Online students, I am audible, right? Yes. Good afternoon, guys. How are you? Why is my voice echoing? So less people in the class, huh? Chaliye. Okay, anyway, let's get started. Okay, so these are the news that we will look at. 5 news are there. One we have already done previously, but we will revisit that. It is again in news. This PM Dhan Dhanya Yojana. Dhan, food grains, Dhanya means money. So this Yojana, we have discussed it previously. Why is it in news right now? Is because the government has identified the 100 aspirational districts. Right, it was based on the aspirational district program. You identify 100 districts. First, you develop those 100 districts, and that can be a model for the other districts as well. So, identification of the districts have taken place, as a result of which it is again in news. More importantly, we will discuss these 4. The first is India EFTA Free Trade Agreement. So, we will understand what is free trade agreement. How is it different from other agreements? Know what other agreements are? Preferential trade agreement. Then you have the free trade agreement, then you have the customs union, then you have the common market, okay? Then you have the economic union, and then you have the monetary union also. So these are stages of integration of different countries with each other. We will understand that in detail. We will see what is this India EFTA free trade agreement is all about, which of course it is with respect to the European countries. So which are those European countries involved? What kind of questions can be asked? We'll see that. The next is tackling unemployment trap in India. So what is this unemployment trap? Now this particular article is quite important because UPSC is now asking questions wherein you have to be very specific. For example, what are the reasons for persistent food inflation in India? Now what mistakes we do is, we write the reasons for inflation, which is factually correct, but the question is not demanding that. The question is demanding what is the reason for persistent food inflation in India. Means what are the reasons for the food inflation presently in the Indian society. Is that clear? So we have to be very specific about those reasons. In the same manner, when we talk about tackling unemployment trap in India, of course, we know what will be the causes, what will be actually be happening, but we should not randomly write. We should actually have a look at the data as to what kind of unemployment is presently there in India, so that we can write our answers specifically. Then third is the electronics component manufacturing scheme. This is a scheme which tries to facilitate more and more manufacturing of the electronic items. Electronic, not items, electronic components. Components means now this laptop is an electronic item. Now inside that laptop you will find diodes, you will find capacitors, resistors. These are the electronic components. There are generally 2 types of electronic components, active and passive. We will see what is the difference between them and what is this scheme all about. And the fourth one is the Indian Ports Act of 2025. So there was a Ports Act already in place which was of 1908. So it has been over 110 years since it was existing. So it was high time that we revamped that act completely, as a result of which we are coming up with a new act, that is Indian Sport Act. There are certain principles on which it works. There will be cooperative federalism, there will be clear-cut demarcation with respect to roles and responsibilities of the central government and the state government with respect to major ports, state government with respect to minor ports, and various other provisions are there, is what we will see. Okay? So let's get started with the very first, that is the India EFTA Free Trade Agreement. Okay? So have you heard about this news? Right, because we are doing it weekly, so you should have already gone through that. Anyway, India EFTA Free Trade Agreement. So there are 4 European countries that are involved with respect to trade agreement with India: Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. Now what kind of questions can you expect? I wanted to emphasize on that. Okay, what if they ask you to arrange this country from north to south, right? So if you want to arrange this country, let's say from south to north, which is going to come first? Yes, Switzerland. After that, yes, whatever that may be. Yes, Liechtenstein. Then, okay.
Norway and then Iceland.
Yes, yes, Ashwin, that's good. Hearing from you after a long time, right? So this kind of question can also come. It is between which countries that can also come. So these kind of agreements, regional agreements, which countries are involved? India has trade agreements with which countries? With which countries we have bilateral trade agreements? Those things will become important for your prelims examination. Now this agreement is basically between India and these 4 countries. Now since we have signed this agreement, it is of course going to boost our it is possibly going to boost our economy. We will also have some benefits. The other 4 countries will also have some benefit. What it definitely does is this: it expands our market access. Also, it is going to attract foreign investment. We will see why. It is going to attract foreign investment because these countries has committed to invest billions of dollars in the next 15 years. So that is a direct investment benefit that we will get over here. So let us have a look at this. So these are the key features. These are the countries. So first you have Switzerland. This is basically Switzerland, and here just over here in the middle is Liechtenstein. That is why Switzerland is more to the south than Liechtenstein. Then you have Norway and Iceland. So Norway is to further south, and then you have Iceland. Is that clear? Now 100% market access for industrial and non-agricultural goods. So we are having 100% market access for industrial and non-agricultural goods. Now why is that the case? We are famous for agricultural goods. Then why we are having this component? See, sometimes what happens is whenever you are doing bilateral trade, free trade agreements, the people may not be able to give you access to certain things. Like India is not willing to give access to USA for its agricultural market. Why? Because that can concern us. Our farmers may take a hit. So it has to be a mutual agreement. So based on that mutual agreement, these are the things that we are going to get. So first is 100% access for India's industrial and non-agricultural goods. Very important. Okay, you should know based on what? Industrial and non-agriculture. In the options you might have agricultural, and that may be very attractive option. Why? Because India does well in agriculture. Next is tariff concessions on processed agricultural products. So on agricultural product, 100% market access is not there, but on the processed agricultural products, we will have tariff concessions. That means tariff will not be 0, it will be lesser. They will reduce the tariff for us. There will be concession. We will be getting a better deal than the deal they will give to someone else with whom they do not have the bilateral trade agreement. The next is this. As we talked about that it is going to increase the investment. So $100 billion is basically committed by these 4 countries to India in the next 15 years. So in the next 15 years, they have committed $100 billion. Now remember one thing, just for you to understand the context, $100 billion, of course, it's a huge amount, but it is over a period of 15 years that we are talking about. So basically, since it's 15 years, even if you take 4-5% of inflation, it will be present days 40 billion or something, which will amount to over a period of time giving $100 billion. Okay? So it is a staggered investment. It is going to come over a long-term period to India. Okay? It is estimated that about 1 million direct jobs will be created. Now the concept of direct and indirect jobs. Direct jobs means since you are exporting more, so the people who are involved in the industrial and the non-agricultural sector, because your production will increase, because you have another market, so the people who are going to export more will hire more. So that will be direct job creation. Indirect jobs creation can also happen. What is the indirect job creation? Since these 1 million jobs are now created, it is going to give money in the hands of those 1 million people, which is going to further demand certain goods and services, which is going to further lead to increase in the demand, which will require us to hire more people. That will be indirect benefit, right? Like the money multiplier effect, in the same manner the multiplier effect will be there, which is going to create indirect jobs. But as far as direct jobs are concerned, around 10 lakh jobs, that is 1 million jobs, will be created. We are discussing about the India EFTA agreement. There are 4 countries, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Iceland. From south to north I have named them. With them we have this agreement. Under this agreement we have got 100% access to the industrial and non-agricultural market, right? Not the agriculture, industrial and non-agricultural market. As far as our agricultural products are concerned, the processed agricultural products from India are going to get concessional tariff by these countries. Concessional means they will lower the tariffs for India as compared to the tariffs that they charge with other countries with whom they do not have the bilateral trade agreement. That means they can have a bilateral trade agreement with some other countries giving them even lower prices, but the countries with whom they do not have any trade agreement, they will be charging them more and they will be charging India less. Further, if you look at the benefits, you have another benefit is $100 billion is what they have committed to invest in India in the next 15 years. Is that clear? And then over 1 million direct jobs will be created. I was explaining the concept of direct jobs. Since we will have to do more production because we have got access to a new market, production has to increase. So in this industry, with respect to the production that we will be exporting, there will be increase in jobs because we will now have to produce more. So that will be leading to direct job creations. That is direct job creations. Because of this direct job creations, more money in the hands of the people, which will lead to more demand, which will require more production, more hiring, that will be indirect job creation. And generally what happens is indirect job creations are multifold than the direct job creations. That generally happens. Why is that the case? Because the chain, like a money multiplier effect, keeps on going. So you have created 1,000 jobs. These people are earning money which previously they did not. They will also demand. So when they demand, money keeps on changing hands. So it keeps on creating more and more demand. Of course, it is going to boost India's competitiveness of export. It is going to boost India's export value also. Okay. Now about the free trade agreements. So if you look at the free trade agreements, this is nothing but integration. We call it as economic integration. Okay. So there is a concept of economic integration. Now imagine a situation wherein the two countries are not trading with each other at all. They're not trading with each other at all. So they are not economically integrated. Is that clear? But then they start trading with each other. So there will start some amount of integration. After that, if they want to trade more with each other, what they will do is, first they will come up with PTA. They will come up with PTA, that is preferential trade agreement. That is preferential trade agreement. This is the first level of economic integration. So what is preferential trade agreement? Let's say these two countries, for example, are India and hypothetically let's make it USA. Right? So what we will do is we will have a preferential tariff for each other. We will have a preferential tariff for each other. Preferential means I am preferring to trade with you, so I will impose less tariff on you. You are preferring to trade with me, so you will impose less tariff on me. That is preferential trade agreement. The second degree is the free trade agreement. Second is generally the free trade agreement. In free trade agreement, what happens is you remove both the tariff as well as non-tariff barriers. You remove both tariff as well as non-tariff barriers, both will be removed. Both will be removed. Now what?
Non-tariff barriers will be removed in the customs union.
In that it will be already removed. So what happens is, if you go up the order, whatever is present over here, it is already present over here. हाँ
Non-tariff barriers are allowed in the PTA and FTA, I guess.
नहीं नहीं, in FTA this is, so what is the difference between PTA and FTA?
Differential trade agreement is only having the goods. With the negative list and the non-tariff barriers also included.
Yes. No, in free trade agreement you will remove the non-tariff barrier also. In customs union, of course, they will have all this benefit of this. You can refer later on. We can refer the book and check it. If you have it, you can check it right away. Then we'll discuss. Okay? Please check it if you have the book. Okay? So now let's understand the logic over here. So preferential trade agreement, you have lowered preferential tariffs. Here, tariff and non-tariff barriers. What are the examples of non-tariff barriers?
Non-tariff quality check.
Yes, sanitary, phytosanitary provisions, quality checks. So this can be actually very frustrating or tedious in the sense that you are saying that I am imposing less tariffs on you, but whenever I am sending my goods to you, what you are doing is you are saying this does not suit our quality standards. Not just that, you may say that it violates human rights. The manner in which the people are manufacturing this in your country, they are not being paid properly, they are not living in a proper situation, they are not constructing or manufacturing this in a proper environment. So this is against human rights, it is human rights violation, so we don't accept it. Okay? That is going to happen. Then you have the customs union. In customs union, what you will do is, these things will already be present. In addition to that, you will have similar tariffs on the other countries. You will have similar tariffs on the other countries. So now you are integrating even more. Why you are integrating more? You have same rates and tariffs for each other, right? But as I said, these countries can give even further lower tariffs to others, but that will not be the case. What you will do is, you will now have similar tariffs for the other countries as well. Okay? So between India and USA, let's say they reduce the tariff to this. So between the rest of the world with whom they do not have any agreement, they are going to have the same tariff rates, both India and USA. That is going to be a customs union. Now you can imagine that customs union's formation for India with respect to any developed country is quite difficult, because then India also have to lower the tariffs over the rest of the countries also. Then you have the common market. So in common market, what you do is, you basically allow the movement of factors of production also across the border. Here you will have movement of factors of production across the border. That means even the people will be allowed to move more frequently or more easily to the other places. That is going to be the common market. And then this economic union, wherein you will have, in the economic union, you will have similar economic policies. You will have similar economic policies as well. So if we are following certain economic policies, the other countries will also follow the same economic policies. After this, the sixth stage of integration is the monetary union. In monetary union, what happens is, you guys have the same currency as well. The countries will have the same currency as well. For example, European Union. European Union has the same currency. It is a monetary union. It is the highest form of integration in the economic sphere. It is the highest form of integration in the economic sphere. Okay. This slide talks about India's other major FTAs with Japan, Australia, UAE, Mauritius, Singapore, Sri Lanka, and now these 4 countries are also involved. In the same line, there is certain trade agreements which are in advanced talks. So India and European Union free trade agreement is in advanced stage. Now we are seeing in advanced stage, not necessarily it will happen, because this trade agreement is going on since 2 decades. Since almost 2 decades, since 2007, they have started this discussion. It was halted after a while, and then recently, a couple of years back, it was reignited again, and now it is a high possibility that we may end up having a free trade agreement with the European Union. Okay? Is that clear? Now, if we are going to have this free trade agreement with European Union, why would you want to still have bilateral trade with certain countries in the European Union? That is because This takes time, this keeps on taking time. Why? Because when more countries are involved, if you have any regional agreement, RCEP, etc. So when more countries are involved, you have to take all the countries on the same page. You all have to mutually agree to certain things. So when you do it bilaterally, country to country or a few countries only, it is easier, faster and swifter to take decisions and implement those free trade agreement. More the number of countries involved, more will be the complexity. And here in the European Union, so many countries are involved, that is why it has taken time. The roadblock in European Union free trade agreement, some of the roadblocks are like, for example, they want access to Indian market with respect to their wines. So Europe is quite famous for producing wines. They want that access to Indian market. Now in India, we know that alcohol, wines, etc. Of course, the market is there, but Europe does exceptionally well in producing it, right? So that is what they want to lower. So let's see what happens. The same thing was the issue previously also, but hopefully this time it will be resolved. Okay? Is that clear? Next is tackling the unemployment trap in India. So this jobless growth, which has been in news few years back, UPSC has also asked a question based on jobless growth. Okay? What is jobless growth? Jobless growth is a scenario wherein the country's GDP is growing, but the employment is not growing proportionately. Proportionately does not mean at the same rate, but at a proportionate rate. So if there is a growth rate of 5% of GDP, the employment should be considered to be growing at around 4%. But it's not growing at 4%, it's growing at around 1.2%. That means what? It is not growing proportionately. As a result of which it feels like it is a jobless growth. Growth is there, but jobs are not there. Now, why will that be the case? See, one thing, of course, when efficiency increases, automation increases, you can produce higher amount with lesser number of people. That is one thing. Second, you have higher and higher services sector involvement in the total GDP. Whereas the more labor intensive sector, the agricultural sector, then the manufacturing, the MSME, which is not technologically advanced, that is very densely labor intensive sectors. Right? But services sector is not that labor intensive. So services sector is growing, which is leading to growth of India's GDP, but the employment is not going at a considerable pace, at the proportionate pace. This is one thing. Second, we have a lot of reports saying that India's youth is not employable. Around 51% people are employable, but 49%, close to half of India's youth is not employable. That is another challenge. Next challenge is in this particular jobless growth or unemployment, a very high proportion of youth is seen. It is said that around 1 in every 3 unemployed person in India, that person is a youth. So out of the total unemployment that we have, 33% are youth. Okay? So that is another challenge. So we are in a stage of potential demographic dividend. Because our population is quite young, so we could have reaped the benefit, but the issue is the youth is unemployable. Now, why is the youth unemployable? Youth is unemployable because they do not have education. They have education, but they lack the basic skills that is needed. So you want to hire someone for management role, the person does not know how to use Google Sheet, how to use Excel sheet, all these things are not known. Now, another reason is the kind of education is provided. In our schools, colleges, you do the graduation, you become an engineer. Never ever are we taught how to use a Excel sheet, right? But when you do a job as an engineer, the entire designing team is using Excel sheet. Just entering formula, calculating, using the Excel sheet, engineering concept is completely different thing altogether. But you don't have that, so you are not employable. These skill sets, so there is a mismatch in the skill set. The skills that the economy demand is not present in the people who are looking for jobs, as a result of which structural unemployment is also there in India and majorly in the youth. There are certain numbers over here. If you look at the ILO report 2024, 1 in every 3 unemployed person is a youth. So 33% is unemployed. In previous class, we have also seen that people might be unemployed because they are not educated, but that is not the case. Over 60% of people are unemployed who have already completed their higher secondary or higher education. Okay? Yes. Any question?
No, sir. I'm just checking the values. Because US capital output ratio is more and India's capital output ratio is less.
Is less.
This is one of the reason.
Capital output?
Ratio
Is
very less to the India compared to the US.
India's capital output ratio, capital to output ratio. Our output is less, our capital requirement is high, so India's capital output ratio will be higher.
Technological advancements are very low.
Huh.
Capital output ratio is less.
Capital output ratio for India will be high.
No, sir. US capital output ratio
Huh.
is high. Because for three.
Sorry, capital output ratio. So India will be investing a lot more capital, getting less output.
And that is the
Correct.
major reason, I guess. I mean, structural unemployment is there. It is only contributes only 30% for the unemployment, and 70% or 60% is capital output ratio is less, and human resource.
India's capital output ratio is less. Okay.
Compared to the US, and human resource efficiency is low compared to the US.
The capital that we are investing is less as no, I think this is India will have a higher capital output ratio, as a result of which capital formation may not happen. What is capital output ratio?
For 1 unit of capital, they will produce 3 units of the output in the US. But for 3 units of the capital, we are producing the only one.
That is why India's capital output ratio is high. Let's not confuse this. See, capital output ratio. So you have capital output ratio. Now capital output ratio is simply capital divided by output. Now in India, for example, we are investing 1 lakh rupees to get an output, whatever the output is. You said that in India you are investing more capital to get less output.
Our machines are.
India is investing more capital to get less output.
Sir, it is not about the only monetary investment. We are purchasing to produce 1 pen. We are using the 3 machines.
Exactly. That machine is also capital only at the end of the day. You have to buy the machine. Correct? So, where is this capital coming from? It's machine only. So, please correct this thing. Capital divided by output. If India is requiring more money to produce a single pen, that means capital that went into producing a single pen is more. So, the numerator is more. The denominator is less. So capital output ratio for India will be higher than the capital output ratio for USA.
Is okay. Higher.
Is that clear?
When it is higher, then only human resource efficiency will be low.
Exactly. Okay? Is that clear? This concept is clear. UPSC has asked question once on capital output ratio. India has higher capital output ratio, right? Since we have higher capital output ratio, we have to invest more and more to get the same output. Whereas the other countries, they have high cutting edge technology, they will invest less also, but they will get higher output because machines are having cutting edge technology. Okay? Sure. So let's move ahead. The causes of unemployment. So we have taken this data from the article and from the respective sources. So demographic pressure. Working age population increasing by 1.9% annually, employment increasing by 1.7%. So it is but obvious the number of jobs that are being created is less. So there is a gap of this much, right? This much is the gap is what I'm saying, not the percentage gap, but the gap is this much. So if you have around 19 million people, or let's say 19 lakh people entering the working age population and only 17 lakh jobs are created, so there is a direct deficit of 2 lakhs of jobs over here. Then there is a skill mismatch. Only 4.7% of labor force has formal skill training. Formal skill training is also quite less. However, it is also argued that when people are skilled, then also people are not getting job. In fact, a lot of skilled people are also not getting job. Why? Because they spend their money, effort and time in getting skilled. And they are now graduates, postgraduates. Now they are not even ready to do the laborious job, which is labor intensive job, because they will feel that this is going to be underemployment, and I don't want to do underemployment. So many reports also suggest that because you have high educational qualification, you are not ready to do the other jobs which are present, so you also still remain unemployed, and at your level in your field there are not many jobs present. Okay? Then we have the jobless growth. Jobless growth wherein the GDP growth rate between 6.5 to 7. This particular fiscal's first quarter we have grown at around 7.8% of growth rate is there. Now the growth rate is good, but the growth rate in job is not much. Okay? Is that clear? So now we'll have to grow at even faster pace. We have to reach the double digit in order to ensure that the jobs also keep on growing. So what is, these are again the causes. Another thing is the gender disparity is definitely there. So you will find the labor force participation or the employment less in females, more in the males. Then technological disruption. This is a World Bank report which says that around 69% of jobs are at risk due to automation. Okay, Prince? Now does that mean 69% of jobs will be lost? No, it does not mean that. It just means that there is risk to 69% of the job. They are having some degree of risk, because of which a lot of jobs will be lost. But because of technology, a lot of jobs may also be created. That is why we need to look in the future and start skilling our population based on the future required skills. Okay? So there are a lot of concepts of many schools that is coming up with. In fact, coaching institutes, right? They are going to train you for the jobs of 2040. They claim to train the children. They reach out to the parents and claim to train their children for the jobs that will be there in 2040. The previous organization that I worked for was actually doing this. Okay? Training your kids for the job that will be there in 2040, 2045. It is actually very difficult to estimate also. It's just a market gimmick, but at least from the government's perspective, in reality, we should be training our future generation for the jobs that are going to be there. You know, right now what jobs are present, we even on a personal basis, right now the jobs that are present, we should not take entry into graduation of those streams whose jobs are presently there. We should focus on what will happen in the next 4 years, next 5 years. Let me go for skilling of those things. Okay? So let's look at the way forward first, then we'll come to the impact. This is the way forward because we are discussing that point. We should have technology adaptation. So we should adopt to the technology, skill the people with respect to the changing technology that is there. Okay? Then boosting manufacturing and exports. When you boost exports, GDP anyhow increases, more production is required. Boosting manufacturing sector, especially the MSMEs, where technological advancement is low, still it is quite labor intensive. More than the service sector, the manufacturing sector is labor intensive. So it will also create job. Then skill development with respect to the technological changes that are taking place. Gender inclusion also has to be there. This is the map of India based on the labor force survey that was conducted. So you can see the highest amount of unemployment in which places are present, and probably the least unemployment which is present in certain states. Okay? Now let's look at the impact of unemployment. Impact is simple. If more people are employed, more productivity will be there, more GDP will be there. So here there will be loss of GDP. It may create a low demand trap. Now the low demand trap means the cyclic diagram that we usually draw in our economic class. Since the unemployment is down, right? So see, less production. Now less production is happening, then what happens? A complete negative cycle. Let's discuss this. So you have the unemployment. When unemployment increases, that means the employment is going down. When the employment is going down, that means people earlier who were having money in their hands, now they don't have money. Since now they don't have money, what they were demanding last month, this month they will not demand. When they will not demand, the demand will go down further. So production will go down further. When production further goes down, it will lead to more decline in the employment. So that negative vicious cycle gets created, which will lead to fiscal stress. The government will have to intervene to create the demand, to provide things at a cheaper rate, to incentivize people. So fiscal stress will come. Poverty, one more thing is there. This photo is of the lumpen proletariats. So because of unemployment, since your financial power goes down, you become poor, you come under the BPL category, you don't have the basic necessities met. So there is a concept of lumpen proletariat. These are poorest of poor who do not have any avenues or source to meet their basic income, basic needs. As a result of which, you know, there is a thinker, Karl Marx, he has called this class as a dangerous class. As a dangerous class. Okay, there will be one point over here which says that unemployment can lead to increase in crimes. Unemployment can lead to increase in crimes because these people could be bought and sold easily to do certain violent things, criminal things, either on their own, or as Marx has said, they could be utilized, the people in power, given small amount of money and made to do things what they would want them to do. So this is just the concept so that you remember, but yes, unemployment leads to increase in crimes also at time. A lot of sociological studies have pointed that out. Okay? Yes. Next, coming on to the electronics component manufacturing scheme. Electronics component manufacturing scheme. Now, under this scheme, India is basically going to facilitate. Under this scheme, India is going to facilitate the manufacturing of the electronic components. Okay, there are two types of components. One is the active component and the other is the passive component. Now, the passive components of electronic are those components which does not generate any energy. They do not generate any energy. They would not need any power source to work. These are the passive component. Whereas the active components are those components that are going to generate energy. Passive components, they do not generate energy. An example of active component which generates energy is diode. Diodes will generate energy. Transistors are going to generate energy. The components that do not generate energy, example are capacitors. Capacitors. Resistors. What does a capacitor do? Capacitor simply stores the energy. What does a resistor do? Resistor resists the energy from flowing from it. So these are passive components. Just some additional knowledge if they may ask you. These are passive component, these are active component. Under the scheme, the government wants to increase the production of the entire electronic component system, be it active or passive. Okay? This is what the scheme is all about. Any questions? Doubts? Yes? Yes, guys, you understood the difference between active and passive. So in this domain, we want to basically produce more and more of electronic components. Now, why is this in news? This is in news because India, this scheme of India has received $13 billion worth of investment proposals. And those investment proposals, in those investment proposals, about 60% will be the involvement of the MSME sector. So this is actually the big news, that we have received investment proposal worth $13 billion already in the scheme. It is going to lead to around 1.41 lakh of direct job creation. Okay? This will also reduce our imports, because a lot of things we import also from other places. So if we are able to produce more, we will satisfy our own demand and then we can look for exporting it in the future. Okay? Yes, yes, please.
Could you just explain active and passive once more, sir?
Yes, yes, I will explain active and passive. So basically, there are different types of electronic components, two types of electronic components. One is active, one is passive. Now, the active ones are those components that basically generate energy. They generate energy. right? So basically you have various turbines, they generate energy. How do they generate? Hydel energy. The water falls from a height, the potential energy gets converted into electric energy. So that's a macro example. At micro level, within our smartphones, within our laptops, etc., also there will be a lot of components. Some of the components will generate energy. For example, your diodes are going to generate energy. The others are passive components. These passive components do not generate energy on their own. They do not generate energy as such. They do not generate. And since they do not generate energy, they don't even require to be connected to energy. What they do generally do is, they may store the energy for you. They may store the energy for you. For example, the capacitor. The capacitor in an instrument is a small component of that electronic instrument which stores the energy for you. It is just a storage component. Did it generate energy? It did not. It simply stored that energy. Then I gave an example of resistor. So this is the resistor. What resistor does? It resists the energy from transferring from one part to another. You know, you have insulators. Insulators are also there, which insulates the energy. It does not let it pass. Okay? So again, you have these which is not going to create energy. It is going to either store it, let it pass, avoid it from passing. Active are the ones that are going to generate the energy. Is that clear? So that is the difference between. Okay? Okay. Now about this scheme, it was launched in April 2025. It is presently in news because we have received proposals. It is for a tenure of 6 years, that is up to 2031. Of course, it complements other programs of India, Make in India, Indian Semiconductor Mission, all those missions, even Make in India. It basically supplements Make in India, because here also we are talking about making the components within India. Okay? And focus on manufacturing passive as well as active components. Okay? Any questions? Next is the incentive structure that is present over here. These are similar schemes which you might remember what they do. So these, as I said, Make in India, it is similar to that. It is in sync with that. You have a Semicon India scheme also, which again talks about in the electronic sector, the production. Now here, the incentive. The incentive, basically here you have a hybrid model. Now this is important. Now what is hybrid model? This scheme has a hybrid model combining both turnover and capex support. What does this mean? This means that capex and turnover. Capex means capital expenditure, and then you have the turnover. Now capital expenditure will happen first, then only the turnover will start. So this scheme is having a hybrid model. That means part of your incentive will be linked to the capital expenditure, and part of your incentive will be linked to the turnover. Now why is that important? See, if as a government you link my incentive to completely the turnover, right? And if I am not doing much well, it is not selling, so I will not get much of the incentive. At the same time, the benefit of the incentives will come to me at a very later stage. So the government is saying that part of the incentive we will give you based on your capex. That means the amount of capital investment or capital expenditure that you are doing, based on that we will give you part of the incentive. So if you have already done a capital expenditure of 10 crore rupees, this is the proof. Here is the incentive. The remaining part of the incentive will come when you produce it, when you sell it, when you generate a turnover. The remaining incentive will come at that time. It is like I give you to do a job, half of the money beforehand, half of the money at the end of the task. So here part of the incentive is going to accrue to you when you have done the capital expenditure, and part will come at the turnover stage. Will be dependent on capital expenditure as well as turnover. So this is a benefit. If you would keep it only with respect to turnover, you will have to wait for the entire turnover to happen. If you will base it based only on the capital expenditure, then the company will be relaxed. Capital expenditure done, I got all the incentive, then I may bother less. As a result of which, it is having a hybrid model, part over here and part over the turnover. Is that clear? So that is why this is turnover linked incentive as well as capital expenditure linked incentive. That is why it is known as the hybrid model over here. Okay? So for prelims, remember this hybrid model. In your answers, you can utilize these concepts that the government is coming up with. Okay, let us have a hybrid structure of incentivization, which keeps the company also motivated, and it also facilitates the company to make investments, helps them to make investment sooner. Okay. Now the investment structure over here is based on first come first serve basis, in the manner that of course there will be certain checks, but the person who comes first is going to be given the preference over here. That means the rejection criteria is not much over here. The government wants to facilitate us. So the government is expecting that a lot of people will apply for it. So if a lot of people apply for it, whoever has applied first to me is going to get the preference, that is first come first serve basis. Time bound disbursement based on verified production milestone. This is simple, easy to understand. Time bound disbursement means whatever the incentive I am giving, it is going to be time bound. You will not get all together at once. For capital expenditure, you have to do the expenditure first, then a part of it will accrue to you after I verify that you actually did the capital expenditure. That's it. Focus is on MSME participation. We have seen that around 60% participation will be there of the MSME. These are the revised MSME criteria. Okay? In the budget 25-26, the MSME criteria has been revised. Based on investment presently, it's not current now, it was before the budget 25-26 was 1 crore. So any company that is investing up to 1 crore was micro, 10 crore small, 50 crore medium. Now what they have done is they have multiplied it by 2.5 and it's 2.5 crore, 25 crore and 125 crore. Based on the turnover, this was the range, they have doubled it and now this is the range. The question in mains you can expect is, what can be the consequences of this change in criteria of the MSME? Critically analyze. Okay? So what will happen is now more companies will be considered as MSME, correct? So more companies can get the benefit of MSMEs, but since in certain schemes you have limitation of funds, you know, you come up with credit guarantee scheme whose budget allocation is 6,000 crore. So what may happen is the big companies might take up. Among the medium also, the very high turnover, high investment company might garner all the benefits and the small companies might now be left out. That can be one of the possibilities. Okay? So this is your MSME thing. Significance, of course, it is going to boost the production. It's the same thing like the free trade agreement gave us access. Now if we are focusing on this scheme, it is going to boost our production. It is of course going to generate the employment. Import substitution will be done, and later on we can also think for exporting more and more over here. Okay? Clear? Complementary role with the other schemes. We have named the other schemes. Please remember their names. You can talk about the complement between them. Next is the Indian Ports Act of 2025. So the Indian Ports Act, the previous one was in 1908, over 100 years old. So it was necessary to come up with new laws, rules, regulations to modernize the act, which was quite archaic in nature. As a result of which the government has come up with the Port Act of 2025. Now, this Port Act of 2025 is important because around 95% of volume, trade by volume happens through the sea route, and close to 68% to be exact, close to 70% of trade by value takes place through the sea route. Now, India wants to become a blue economy by 2047. Now, there is a concept of blue navy, right? Blue navy, blue ocean navy or blue navy. Have you heard that concept? So, blue navy, if you talk about, it is a concept wherein when you talk about navy, it has everything to do with military operations, right? So if a country has a blue navy, that means it has its military naval setup in various places around the world, not just next to or close to its own sea waters. Is that clear? So USA, for example, is a blue navy. They have naval bases across the world. They can carry out operations throughout the world. Now that is not the case with Pakistan. Does not have a blue navy. They have a green navy which they can take care only about surrounding their own region. right? India has a presence of Blue Navy. We have our naval bases in different parts, majorly in the Indian Ocean, but amounts to the Blue Navy, because in international waters, in different places, in different countries, near their naval bases, we have our own naval bases spread across the world. Not, of course, as big as the USA. Now, when you talk about blue economy, vision of blue economy, that means we want to become blue economy with respect to, means have our sea route and export through the shipment present all over the world. We want that connection to be present so that we can also become a blue economy. With respect to defense, we have that presence. With respect to economy is what presence we want. That's why we are having Chabahar port and other ports being also constructed. So our economy ships are also having various sea routes. Okay? So that vision is there for 2047, 100 years of our independence. Now key provisions. There will be statutory recognition of state maritime boards. The state maritime boards that are there right now, they will get statutory recognition under this particular act. So before that, the Indian Ports Act did not recognize the state boards as such. Now they will get a recognition over here. Next is formally empowering the coastal states to manage the non-major ports. Now presently, of course, the states are managing to an extent, but here there is a formal recognition of the states to manage the non-major ports. Major ports managed by the central government, the non-major ports, basically the minor ports managed by the state governments. Next is Maritime State Development Council. Now this Maritime State Development Council has also been given the statutory status. Now previously this council, this is an excerpt from a council that was being conducted, the 20th one. It was just like a, a meeting which used to take place every year. Just a meeting which used to take place every year. It was an event. Now this particular event, the Maritime State Development Council, this meeting is going to again get a statutory status. That means there will be a legal backing. That means you will be mandated to conduct these meetings. Previously also we were conducting regularly, but there was no mandate as such. There was no, let's say, pressure or compulsion for you to do that. Now there will be compulsion for us to do that, which is a good thing because it gets a statutory status. Data transparency and unified reporting means you will have a centralized system which will provide all the data of all the ports together at one place, which will lead to unification of reporting, and also data transparency will be there. Every other port will know data about every other port through one single source of centralized authority. Okay? So bringing in more transparency. National level planning and coordination, fair enough. This is important. Center state policy harmonization. Why center state policy harmonization is, now the central government is going to give a free hand to the state to take care of the non-major ports. Involvement of the central government will be negligible. So that leads to cooperative federalism also. Okay? Next is the post officers. Now there will be post officers who will take care of the vessel traffic regulation, the rules, regulations, licenses. So the port officers. The port officers are there. Now they are also mentioned in this particular act, who will be doing certain activities like vessel traffic regulation, fee recovery, disease control, etc. will be done by them. Basically these things, since presently were not elaborated, are now being elaborated in this new act that is being coming. Then penalty adjudication for violation of port rules. Adjudication means how much, not just the implementation of penalty, but in different cases of violation and in the context that violation was done, the adjudication of how much penalty the person is required to be paying, that is the adjudication which will be done by them. Next is the dispute resolution. The port related disputes. Now the port related disputes will go to the respective high courts, appeal mechanism. High courts arbitration allowed for faster redressal. So directly to the respective, if you have seen here the different ports that are there, it is with respect to the different states. So you have the state of Maharashtra, for example, you have Goa over here, Kerala over here, Tamil Nadu over here. So any appeal You know, if there is any judgment is taken with respect to the penalty that was imposed, if you want to make an appeal, the high courts will be given the authority to resolve the disputes. Now, one issue of course it creates is, it actually may put a more burden on the high courts as well. That is also a possibility, because here we are not having a separate tribunal. If you have a tribunal, the tribunal can filter out a lot of things, a lot of cases, and then it could reach the court. So any filtration of tribunals is not there as such, so that can be a negative over here. Transparency, yes, transparency is what? All the tariffs that are there in the courts. Tariffs means what? When the ship comes, it pays a tariff. It halts at the port, it pays a tariff. We are allowing it to enter in our port. The port has been constructed, whether it is an Indian flag ship, Indian flag vessel, or a foreign flag vessel, Indian ship or a foreign ship, they will be paying certain tariffs. So what tariff is prevailing in which major port of India and minor port of India will be completely made online. It is like the ENAM, that is the Electronic National Agriculture Market. All the prices are available on fingertips on the portal. In the same manner, the tariffs will be available on the portal. So it will help you also to take better decision as to in which port you want to dock, what are the charges that the ports are taking. Okay? Next, safety, sustainability and digital transformation. So there is this MARPOL rules or guidelines which talks about the safety, which talks about the environment, taking care of the environment. You know, an example of guideline is over here. As per this MARPOL, if you cannot dump the waste of the ship up to 3 nautical miles. It's completely prohibited. Between 3 to 12 nautical miles, the discharge is allowed only when sewage is comminuted and disinfected. Basically, you have processed that sewage to lower its toxicants or to lower its toxics. If you have done that, then between 3 to 12 nautical miles, you can dispose it of. Untreated sewage can only be disposed of beyond 12 nautical miles. So like this, there are various measures that are present for dumping of the waste of the ships, for the safety of the ships, for the conservation of the environment of the oceans. Right? So all the provisions that are coming under this Port Act are in sync with the MARPOL guidelines that are there. Okay? These are basically guidelines, maritime guidelines against pollution. It is against pollution. It is basically a French word which they have converted into English and written as MARPOL. The abbreviation comes from, I think, the French language. Okay? So it is the measures that are provided against the pollution and for the safety standards of ships. Okay? So it is in sync with that. Anything else? Yes, digitization and efficiency. So digitalization of the ports is taking place so that everything is completely digital. It is online. When everything is digital, you are not maintaining any hard copy of records. So there will be more transparency in the functioning. Okay? Any questions? One more thing is, it supports India's net zero target. So India has a target of net zero carbon emission by 2070. There are guidelines which will focus towards moving towards net zero carbon emission from the Indian ports also by 2070. Net zero means they will emit carbon, but whatever carbon they will emit, they will either sequester or they will reduce that much amount of carbon elsewhere in some other region. That is net carbon zero by 2070. Okay? Yes. Now also the major ports are controlled by the central government. The minor ports have been given to the state government, but now it is being formally stated. Right? So you were allowing the state government to handle it, but now you are formally stating in the act that, boss, now you can do it. This is mentioned in this particular act. So now this act gives a backing to the state government to manage their own ports. Okay? The management till there. The management till there. So when you have seen that diagram that is there, right? We have this diagram. So what happens is this diagram. So you have various ports that are there, right? So the management, maintenance, upkeep, the fees, regulation, the charges that will be there, what types of charges that are there. So if it's a major port, the central government does it. If it's a minor port, the state governments will do it. So that is why in state governments, since different governments are managing, you might see a lot of differences. Even in the central government's management, different ports can still have different levies or different fees. That is not a problem. It is not that it is a major port, so central government is managing, so it will have the same tariff. No, not necessarily. It changes a lot because the countries who will be trading from this side, the countries who will be trading from this side, you are bringing it in Mumbai, for example, the ports in Mumbai. So the connectivity from Mumbai to different parts of India, connectivity to sell the goods, So based on all that, the ease of it, the mechanization of the port is also very important. The digitization, mechanization is very important. Why? Because if your ports are not mechanized, then the turnaround time of the port increases. Turnaround time is what? The ship enters. The moment it enters, now you have to harbor it, unload it, and then you won't send it empty. Whatever is going to be taken, you may add it also. So you have to reload the ship, and then the ship turns and goes back. So from the time between coming of the ship and leaving of the ship and all the operations in between is known as the turnaround time. If your port is not mechanized, your turnaround time will be high. Since your turnaround time will be high, the ship might be docked at your port for 3 days, for example. So 3 days of productivity of the ship is gone. If your port is mechanized, you might do this task within hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. So the mechanized ports that are present in Japan and in elsewhere, they have very low turnaround time. And since they have low turnaround time, you will be inclined towards harboring at such a place and paying the fees tariff, whatever is there, and then moving back. So you can charge more fees if your ports are more efficient.
So, to this one, there is one Sagarmala project is there.
Sagarmala project, yes.
Sagarmala project is there, which is by a center.
Yes.
So, when in this bill, did they compliance with the projects of the coastal?
जी बोलिए.
And Sagarmala project is related to the coastal only.
Yes, it will be there. So in Sagarmala project, whatever the ports that are going to be developed, they are going to follow these guidelines. They will also be coming under the ambit of Indian Ports Act. Yes, definitely. ठीक है? Next is this PM Dhan Dhanya Yojana. Now we have done this. We will recapitulate this. This PM Dhan Dhanya Yojana, Dhan I said means money, Dhanya means food grains. It basically is trying to help 1.7 crore farmers. And how it is trying to help? It is first trying to identify 100 aspirational districts. Now what kind of districts these are? These districts are going to be those districts where productivity is low, the farmer income is not much, the farmer suicide may be high, the debt will be high. That means they are not doing good right now, but the government will make them do better in the future. So they will identify those 100 districts. Now it is in news because the government has identified those 100 districts and made the list public. Now in these districts, this particular scheme is going to work, and it is going to be made as an ideal district, which will be a benchmark for the other districts to develop. That is what the PM Dhan Dhanya Yojana is. I think you have the details of it. 100 districts, 24,000 crore has been allocated yearly for 6 years for this particular scheme. It will help around 1.7 crore farmers. The scheme is going to help around 1.7 crore farmers. This is based on the aspirational district scheme which was there of the government of India previously. The government has aspirational district yojana in a lot of schemes. I think under left-wing extremism also they focused on 100 aspirational districts. In rural development, they had focused on 100 aspirational districts. So aspirational districts are those which are not doing well right now, but you aspire them to do well in the future. Okay? Yeah. So criteria of the district selection: low productivity, low crop intensity, low credit disbursement means institutional source of credit is less. Representation across the state has to be there. That means, let's say there is a state, let's say the state of Karnataka, there is no district which comes under top 100 of doing worse. but still minimum one district has to be there from each state. That minimum criteria is there. That means minimum one district from each state will be there in order to ensure representation across India. Okay? Yes, I hope that's clear. Let's move on to questions. Let's quickly solve it because just now we have completed this. Which of the following statements about India EFTA Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement is correct? First statement is incorrect. Germany is not included. The agreement links market access with investment commitments from EFTA. Yes, possible. This looks right. C, primarily focuses on agricultural exports. No, non-agricultural, industrial and non. It excludes services from its scope to prioritize merchandise trade. No, it is not the case. It is not the case. You can be transporting services also. Okay? And in fact, when you write any answer of FTA, make sure that you mention a point that whenever India is going to go on a table to negotiate with any country, the trade in services should be a point of discussion because we are very strong in that. We are very strong in that. Global, this is no, the heading is wrong. The term unemployment trap in India is, Indian context refers to situation where high economic growth leads to jobless expansion in the services sector. Individuals prefer to remain unemployed. This is incorrect. Decline in labor force participation due to automation. Incorrect. Mismatch between education levels and available job opportunities. Yes, a situation where high economic growth leads to jobless expansion in the services sector. Please think and answer. A mismatch between education levels and available job opportunity. Did we discuss that? Huh? When did we discuss that? A mismatch between education levels and available job opportunities. See, let's understand this. We know that the unemployment trap that we are talking about is a jobless growth. Jobless growth means productivity is high, but jobs are not getting created. We said this in a general sense. This is specifically the case in the services sector. Why? Because services sector is not labor intensive. So if in agriculture or if in the manufacturing sector you will see a high growth rate, you will see employment also growing. But if you look at our growth rate, you know, the services sector is growing at 10-11% in the last couple of years. The agriculture sector is growing at less than 4%, right? 1.5, 2, 3, maximum 4%. Is that clear? Services sector growth rate is very, very less. Whereas the proportionality, agriculture sector's growth rate is very, very less. Services sector's growth rate is high. But the job creation in the services sector is not in proportion with respect to the growth that it has. So in the overall GDP, in the overall economy of India, where we see GDP is high, but job is not growing much, it is majorly due to the services sector, which is less labor intensive. Okay? Next, electronics component manufacturing scheme. Answer A. A. It complements Indian semiconductor mission by promoting upstream component manufacturing. Yes, it does. Incentives under the scheme are linked to both capital expenditure and employment generation. Third, scheme tenure is 5 years start. Third is incorrect. Third is incorrect. 1 and 2. Third is incorrect. 1 and 2. Third is incorrect. Its tenure is 6 years of tenure. It's quite factual, but third is incorrect. With reference to Indian Ports Act, which of the following statement is incorrect? Repeals the Indian Ports Act, modernizing the legal framework for regulation. It's correct. Second, it empowers the state maritime boards to frame regulations for minor ports. C, the act introduces a unified national level digital system for port operation. Yes. C is also correct. It transfers control of all major ports from union government to coastal states. Incorrect. It's an extreme statement. Okay? Yes. Any questions? Yes, Prince? No? Please go through that. And there are certain other topics as well. I hope you might have received this document wherein there are certain topics like empowering women in agriculture, important for your mains. In fact, even important for your essays. Remember that. Payment Regulatory Board, prelims oriented, annual survey of industries, very important. Food grain storage in India, extension of the road TEP scheme. What is the scheme? You should know what the scheme is. India's dairy sector, national pulses mission and MSP for prelims and mains both. Then you have analyzing states macro fiscal health, safeguarding India's digital economy. Nation must prepare to deal with stable coins. Stable coins. What are stable coins? We have done that in previous class. More women employed in agriculture, but half of them are unpaid. Okay? So women's role in economy is important. Maybe you may get an essay, but essay this time we have seen all were philosophical. May not necessarily be the case next year. Thank you.